Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how.
I wanted to share the 4 things I did at my last position to escape being laid off twice in the 4 years that I worked with that company. My name is Shadi Curry. I'm a life love leadership coach. I work with divorced women primarily, and I use sort of my background to help a lot of divorced women who are going back to the workforce after a divorce or who need to move to a new level or earn more money after their divorce. At my last job, I escaped being laid off twice in 4 years. And looking back, it looks like a lot of luck, but the real lessons within that situation are sort of hidden in the unconscious things that I did at that time. So the first thing that happened was I had gone back to work after my own divorce. I got this really great job as a contractor within this company. It was a great role. I loved my team. I had a great boss. She was awesome. She's still awesome. We are still in touch. About 4 or 5 of us analysts on her small team. So one of my goals when I had joined the company was to eventually become a full-time employee because the company had great benefits, pension, all the things. And so that was sort of like my next goal. Now that I had gotten the job, I got the great salary, I wanted to become a full-time employee. So I put it on my vision board if you are into things like that. But I wasn't actively working on it. I was just really loving where I was at. So that's really the first principle that I will say is to always know what your next level is that you're going to work towards or at least dream about. So I'd set that goal to become a full-time employee. And because I had set the intention about a year in to this role, an opportunity came up. So we were working with another team to help them kind of set up some processes. I was a process analyst and this was a robotics process analysis team. And we were helping them set things up. So I was interfacing with that team. And just in passing, the new head of that team mentioned that he was hiring for his team. And I was like, are you hiring contractors or are you hiring full-time employees? And he said he was hiring full-time employees, that all of his roles, at least many of his roles would be full-time roles. And so I was like, that sounds amazing. Would you be willing to consider me for one of those roles? And he was like, yes, actually, I can't believe I didn't think about it because I've been looking at all these resumes and, I haven't been getting a lot of really great resumes. So I said, absolutely, let me talk to my boss. I'm going to apply for one of your full-time roles. And so I kind of already knew that I would be a shoe-in with him because we had worked, a little bit. He's seen my work. I still had to interview with his team, but I knew that it was a good chance that I would get it if I applied for it. Now, the challenge was my team we were just like all in love with each other. We're like really, and we are still to this day. I believe all of us have left the company now, but we are still friends. We still hang out. We just did a girls trip not long ago. So that's how close we were and how much we just had this little bubble of love on this team. And so I had a really hard time, like really going to my boss and telling her, I want to leave your team. Of course it wasn't personal, but still it was a big deal. You guys know how it is. And so I loved her so much. I didn't want to tell her that I was leaving her team. And also I didn't want her to not like me if I didn't get the job on the other team, because there was still a chance I wouldn't get it. And then what would it be like working with her if I stayed with her knowing that I was going to leave? These were all of my own thoughts. Trust me, she was not. Now that I look back, I realize she was not thinking any of those thoughts. So it took me about a week to get my courage up and say, hey, can we talk? I just want to talk for a few minutes. And we sat down and I said, hey, this is what's going on. This gentleman has a role on his team that I want to apply for. It's not that I don't love working for you. I just really want the opportunity to be a full-time employee. I want to be able to give my kids really great healthcare and all the other benefits that come with being a full-time employee. And I kid you not, she teared up and gave me a hug and was like, oh my gosh, you will not believe this is such a godsend. And I was like, how? She had just been given an order to eliminate one person for her team. So there were just budget cuts within our department. So every team leader was asked to lay one person off on their team. So she was having to figure out which of these 5 analysts that I absolutely love am I going to say, hey, you have to leave. So she was probably going to lay off whoever was the newest. But I mean, that had to have been hard for her. And so the fact that I was leaving her team meant she didn't have to let anyone go. So that was such a godsend for her. And I believe that was just a miracle, something that God put in place at just the right time for all of us. And so I did apply for the role. I got the role on that job. I started working as a process analyst for this robotics process analysis team. New opportunities. I was having a good time. It was really great. I learned a lot. And I helped build the team because we were building the team from scratch. And so as the team grew over the next, I think probably about 2 years, then they put in the layers. So there was a layer that came in above me. I do not have an MBA. So the layer above me were all MBAs, which was nice. That was fair. Like, listen, I had no intentions of going to get an MBA. That was just not a thing that I had any interest in doing. So, but I did have an interest in growing on the job. So I had set my next target kind of like as the team got built and settled in. My next target was, listen, I train a lot of these people, even some of these MBAs on our processes. So I believe that I can handle a lot of what they do, even though I don't have like the qualifications on paper. And so what I did was each MBA had like a portfolio of a book of business that they ran. And so what I did, like in my spare time, I was that good at my job where I had spare time to like build a whole new portfolio of business for our team. And so whenever I worked with people, I always made sure I made great connections. So I had a network out of any of the teams that I worked with, people who knew me, people that I knew, people that I could call in for favors. Like, listen, if you are working in IT, you got to know all the networking guys. You just got to know them. You got to know their names. Like, you got to ask about their family. So I had built like this really big network outside of my teams. And so I knew people. And so I said, you know what is the best way for me to make a case to move up within this team? And I figured the best case was to demonstrate that I could do the role and just literally do the role. So in my spare time on the job, I did the role. I built a book of business for my team. I sold our services and got yeses from 3 or 4. I don't know if I quite had 5 yeses, but I think I know I had at least 3 to 5 yeses of other groups that were going to work with our team on the services that we gave to the company. And so then I set the whole thing up and I made a pitch to my boss and I said, hey, I have this book. I've got yeses from all of these teams. They want to work with us. I would love to lead the portfolio that I have built. And so in that meeting, he was very frank, and I won't go into all of the details or what ifs, maybes, I wonder whys. He was like, no, you're not going to lead the portfolio. This is great. These are his literal words. He was like, there is nowhere for you to move up on this team. And those were his words. And I have a lot of conjectures and reasons why maybe, and I'm not going to go into that because, you don't really know for sure. But he was like, no, you can't. You're not going to be able to do this. And so and not only did he do that, he took my book of business and gave it to the other managers on the team. So that kind of pissed me off a little bit. I was not happy about that. But the third thing that I did was I pivoted. I took him at his word, and I'm really grateful actually that he was that frank with me because that helped me make a decision about what I was going to do next. And I was like, okay, if there's nowhere for me to move up here, well, I'm not going to sit in this role where obviously I'm very valuable. I'm obviously more valuable to the team in this role than anywhere else. However, for me, I'm a person who wants to continually grow. And I wanted to grow. And I realized he was frank and said, you're not going to grow in this role. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go find my next role. And so I took the network that I had built and I began to leverage it to find my next role. And so that was the third thing that I did was I asked my network for help. So I began looking at roles within the company. I began asking people about roles that they knew were available. I eventually found this role that I was just like, oh my God, this is perfect. It was remote. It was I was supporting client-facing teams. So, I just felt like there was just a lot more opportunity. There was a lot more opportunity for travel. There was just like more perks with that role. And I asked my network, I said, do you know who the hiring manager is? Can you put in a good word for me? And so I applied for that role. I leveraged my network to recommend me for the role based on what I had demonstrated in my work prior. And I got that role. So I moved into my third role in that company. And it took about 3 months for me to get this role. 3 months after I switched teams into this other role, the entire team that I had been on, like that was 35 people. This was a huge team. It was like the entire team was part of a massive layoff of 400 employees at one time. That layoff was nicknamed the bloodbath. Like when people called me, because I was off on, I was on another team now and I didn't hear directly about it. Someone called me and said, hey, did you hear about the bloodbath? I'm like, wait, what? And they were like, yeah, 400 people here were laid off all at once. So and that entire team of 35 people, at that point, the boss had moved on, but 35 people were laid off at once. And it was just really hard, So I think about the fact that I luckily missed 2 layoffs in that company. And so I know a lot of people are going through layoffs now and a lot of people are, facing this kind of thing. And I just want to say that the principles that I unconsciously used while I was a 9-to-5 employee apply. So for those of you, whether you have been laid off or there is a possible layoff in your future, these are the 4 things that I did, even though I wasn't consciously putting them in place, that helped me escape to layoff. So the first one was I set an intention to continually move up. So I was constantly pushing against the edges of my role. And some of this was subconscious, but the subconscious work happened because I set the intention. So I set the intention even when I got my first role to become a full-time employee, which put my brain on alert for opportunities to become a full-time employee. So even if you're not actively applying or whatever, if you set the intention, you tell your subconscious to look for that opportunity in your life. So that was the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I built a network outside my team. This is something that I do now that I'm a business owner and I work for myself. This is something that I'm constantly doing all the time because every good thing that's going to come to you, unless it's in nature, like the ocean is there and the sky is there, those are all good things that come to us. Anything outside of nature is going to come to us through people. Right? Whatever it is, there's going to be an exchange with another human being for everything that you want. And so build a network, right? Get to know people, build the skill. So some of that skill comes to me a little bit naturally. I am a people person. However, I know that people skills are just skills. They can be built, right? So it might be easier for me to build it than others, but they can totally be built. It's something I help my clients with because many of them, if they've been stay-at-home moms or they've been in a small role or they haven't thought about their network or they lost their network in the divorce, they have to build a new network. So these are skills that I had teach my clients over and over and over again. So make sure you are building a network one way or another, no matter where you are. The third thing that I did was when I got a no, I didn't take a no from someone as a no for me. It was just like, whatever I want is not here. This is something else I teach my clients when my clients who are dating after a divorce is like, listen, a person's rejection is not like a rejection of you. It's just that they are not the person for you, right? So that principle also applies here, which is my boss told me no, but that didn't mean like I couldn't do the thing. I demonstrated that I did the thing. And so that I never took his no as anything to do with me or my capability or my ability. I just knew I needed to take my value somewhere else. So learn to pivot when you get a no. And then finally, the fourth thing that I did was I leveraged my network. People want to help you. People want to give back if you've given to them. Closed mouths don't get fed. You have to be willing to ask other human beings to help you when you need it. Now, there are ways to do it that are classy, and there are ways to do it that are more classy, elegant, appropriate, depending on the situation that you are in. So it's not just a random way of like just asking people for help, but there are ways to do it that are appropriate within different settings. And this is something that, I teach my clients. I'm like, okay, in this setting, this is the right way to do this. In this setting, this is the right way to do that. Or sometimes we're brainstorming together what would be the right way to get the help that you need in this situation. But what is never helpful is not asking for help. What is never helpful is not leveraging the network. What is never helpful is not being willing to receive in a situation where you have been a giver. So that is my story of escaping 2 layoffs in 3 to 4 years when I was a 9-to-5 employee. I hope something in this story is helpful to those of you who either have been laid off or there is a potential for you to be laid off in this economy. Sending so much love to everyone. And if you feel like I am the right coach to help you through this period, please feel free to send me a message or book a call with me and we can talk about it.
Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. head over to shadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.